From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson.
And I'm Eric Rosen.
We're very happy that you could join us this evening. We just saw earlier that Eileen Hanlon peeked through on the other side of the glass. Shout out to Eileen Hanlon for always doing a wonderful job. We join you tonight on a rather somber note, though, because another atrocity and another act of cowardice and terrorism has been committed against our people. Look no further than what happened in Orlando this past weekend.
Orlando in general, on Friday to Sunday this past weekend has been a scene where dreams have been turned into nightmares, unfortunately. First off, it started with a Friday night shooting of a promising would-be singer, Christina Grimmie, who was a contestant on The Voice at the age of 21. She was on the third season, coached by Adam Levine, and really had a promising career ahead of her. And unfortunately, an assailant came by and shot her as clear as day, right in front of all these fans while signing autographs. And that was the sick, deranged person's plan, was to kill Christina in front of people and get away with it. But the brother made sure that wasn't the case. Unfortunately, the assailant is not facing justice. He did take his own life. That was pretty sad for the world of music right there.
Yeah.
And it took place in Orlando. And then the next day was probably one of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history when a gunman who basically was a U.S. citizen from Florida who pledged allegiance to ISIS, an organized terrorist group from Syria and Iraq that's based in that region in the Middle East. This guy has been questioned twice by the FBI and yet was concluded as not being much of a threat, and unfortunately went into a gay nightclub in Orlando and took out 50 people, took their lives, and injured or wounded 52 others. There's so many things that come into play with this situation. Some people may look at it from as homophobia or hate crime that was committed, terrorism. There's intolerance that comes into play, gun control issues that come into play, as well as intolerance, because the fact that this guy was of the Muslim faith, and there might be some people who think that all Muslims are like that when that's not really the case. But there is going to be that certain population of people who feel like that. When this was just an ugly, despicable atrocity that was committed, that I'm sorry, folks. I know it sounds like I'm ranting, but it just makes me mad. It makes me really mad that things like this happen in our country, that happen in the world, in fact.
I could go on and try and make a rant of my own, but what is that going to get me? That's number one. Number two, after what just happened this past weekend, exactly when are we going to reach the point of no return?
I think we already reached that point and then some. There's not going to be any gun control legislation whatsoever. There will be talk about it. There will be a calling of action towards gun control legislation, but that's never going to take place for many reasons that I won't get into. But what I'm hoping what comes at this, like in any situation, especially for the people of Orlando, is that we can all come together, as Americans, and not go towards the route of hatred, intolerance, because that's what this guy wants. That's what every person who perpetrates these kinds of crimes and acts want, is for a society to disintegrate where hatred reigns the day instead of love and peace and kindness and love and tolerance towards all people.
It's one thing to see radicals who claim to be of the Muslim faith try and commit this atrocity and this act of cowardice. But when you have American citizens, people that were born and raised here, now pledging their allegiance to this group of cowards who claim that they're all doing this in the act of God, what God is there that can actually condone this violence? I don't know of any God or anything that would stand for anything like this. And just so you know, you mentioned how this is going to cast a dark cloud over the Muslim faith.
Well,
The Muslims will tell you they don't condone. Real Muslims who follow the Quran and who pray, they'll tell you they would never, ever condone this type of violence. They will teach, or they're taught, they love one another. They're taught to love their fellow brother and sister.
I didn't, say that, but I'm saying there will be groups of people who unfortunately will see this, and there are people who will think that because this guy was a Muslim faith, or the fact that he was a terrorist, a part of ISIS, there are some people who unfortunately have that mindset that they will think all Muslims are like that, when that's not the case. These are good, peace-loving people, just like all people from different creeds, races, religions. And unfortunately, this guy was a small speck of hatred that committed a crime that was just beyond comprehension, just to get people to disintegrate into hatred and intolerance.
I don't know what God these people are following, but the last time I checked, Jesus taught us to love one another. Jesus loves us. Jesus was the one that died for our sins. You want to talk about sins right now? These people that committed these atrocities and every other act of not just terrorism, but cowardice that has been perpetrated onto this country, there is no love whatsoever that they're preaching or that they claim to be receiving from their God.
Well,
first things first, it's time we start cracking down on these loopholes that are in the gun laws that are in this country. Somewhere down the line, we need some people to stand up to the NRA and tell them to take their money and stick it where the sun don't shine. Because one of these days, it's going to be like a total catastrophe. It's going to take, I hate to say this, but it might take a War of the Worlds or Walking Dead type of situation to make these people realize that something needs to be done, and something needs to be done immediately. So until that happens, I hate to say this, but there is just no place on this planet, much less this country, where anybody can walk safe right now, because there are always radicals like those little cowards in Orlando that perpetrated this act that are going to be running around spreading their hate.
Well, but no matter what, let's just, think about the victims and their families and send our hearts, our prayers, our condolences, and our thoughts to everybody that was affected in the Orlando nightclub yesterday, and that, these people, that New York is with them, the entire country, nay, the world is with them and will be with them.
There's a lot of native New Yorkers that are living in the Florida area, Miami, Orlando, Tampa. Do you know that my cousin, who grew up in Miami, now lives in Orlando? That attack took place just 5 minutes from where his job is. Fortunately for him, the night of that attack, he was back in South Florida visiting his family, celebrating his birthday, by the way. Today's his 27th birthday.
Happy birthday to him. And at least he's safe, but it's unfortunate there are others who were not safe, who passed away. But like I said, our thoughts, our prayers, everything is with them. Now,
just because there were some radicals that wound up committing this terrorist act doesn't mean that the people of Orlando are alone. Just like what happened here, just like what happened in Oklahoma City, just like what happened in Southern California, we are with you. Hands down. And speaking of people who have passed on, there was a long list of former athletes that wound up passing away recently. Just this past Friday, they had the funeral for Muhammad Ali. It wound up being broadcast on all 3 major networks.
It was probably the most highly attended funeral for the man they called the Great One. The guy who's had, we mentioned last week, 61 career fights, 14 countries fought in, 3 World Heavyweight Championship title stints, 2 Olympic gold medals, and on top of that, 37 career knockouts out of the 56 total wins he's had, and fought the greats like fought Sonny Liston 3 times against Joe Frazier, including the Thriller in Manila, George Foreman. So many amazing fights he's had in his career, and so many dignitaries, celebrities paid their respects to the man they called the Great One, the man of Louisville, Kentucky.
And listen to this short list of names that wound up being in attendance. Will Smith, former President Clinton, Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson,
Billy Crystal,
who probably had the best story and one of the funniest stories to tell about Ali. That was number 1. There were at least 10 to 15,000 people that wound up showing up at that arena in Louisville that day, and it was probably the most beautifully arranged ceremony for any public figure that has passed on that I could remember seeing on television recently.
That was probably the biggest funeral procession I've seen actually since Princess Diana in '97.
Yeah. And to think, this guy was not only a spectacular fighter, he might have been one of the biggest lightning rods for controversy of his time. What with his stance against the Vietnam War and his conversion to Islam. But, like I said before, the Muslim religion is about peace and loving one another. This man loved everybody so much that this African American who converted to Islam, one of his best friends was Billy Crystal, a Jewish New Yorker.
From Long Island, of course.
From Long Island.
And you know what?
Called him his little brother.
And they were very good friends. And you know what?
They even attended Howard Cosell's funeral together back in the early 90s after Cosell passed away.
One of my favorite sportscasters of all time, by the way.
And Cosell and Muhammad Ali, they had probably the most unique relationship of any athlete and member of the media ever, because not only did Ali have a lot of his fights broadcasted by Cosell on ABC, they were actually friends for many years.
In fact, in the movie Ali, of course, that's why Will Smith was there, because he portrayed Ali. In fact, was nominated for portraying Muhammad Ali. And that year, John Voight actually portrayed the late Howard Cosell in the movie. So, it was really that was a great tribute to him, that movie. But this funeral was an even better tribute to the man, the legend. He's not a myth. This guy was anything but a myth.
He was the man and the legend in the boxing circuit.
And unfortunately, not only did he pass away, this might not be as big of a deal to some people, but if you're a fan of mixed martial arts, Kimbo Slice at the age of 41.
That really surprised me. But then
passed away.
You consider this. Kimbo Slice also had a little bit of an issue with performance-enhancing drugs in the past. I would hate to think that PEDs played a role in his passing, but it would not surprise me if it did.
But really, that took me back. And, of course, one of the greatest hockey players of all time, Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe, passed away at the age of 88 on Saturday. This was the Canadian farm boy from Saskatchewan, Canada, born, who debuted in 1946 with the Detroit Red Wings at the age of 18 and started a career that spanned almost, to his 50s.
32 years he played the sport. He spent exactly a quarter of a century playing in Detroit. Then, after being retired for 2 years, he came out of retirement, played 7 years in the old World Hockey Association.
Won the 73 title, in fact.
He's the only hockey player to play 5 decades in his sport.
And play for the Hartford Whalers in the AHL, too, which is crazy, from 79 to 80. And you know what? 52 years old. He retires, and you know who's the rookie that very year? the great one,
Wayne Gretzky.
How apropos, passing the torch from Mr. Hockey to the great one.
And the great one always said that Gordie Howe was the greatest player that he ever saw. And, of course, there was that very famous photo of Howe posing with Gretzky when Gretzky was a kid.
And that's what made him want to be a hockey player, too. From one Canadian hero to another. And this guy, he set records. He set records for penalty minutes, because he was a brawler. He was as you would call an enforcer in hockey too, because he took no crap from anybody.
Oh yes.
He also set the record for goals, 801 goals. He had 1,850 career points, which of course those records were eventually eviscerated by Gretzky.
And Gordie Howe, of course, wound up playing with one of his, actually, I think with two of his sons in the WHA.
Yes, that's right, Mark and Marty Howe. And then, he was part of that awesome production line, back in the 50s. That's right. With some Hall of Famers like Ted Lindsay and Sid Abel, during their 25-year run with the Red Wings, they won 4 championships. That's why they call Detroit Hockey Town.
Yeah, and you thought Montreal was Hockey Town? Well, here in America, Detroit is the real Hockey Town.
And on top, and when you think of him, he goes with names like Brett Hull. Some of the legends that played this sport. That he won the Art Ross Trophy 6 times. The Hart Trophy 6 times for being the MVP. He's won 4 Stanley Cup championships. He had a record 23 All-Star appearances. This guy was and will always be Mr. Hockey.
And for the record, Gordie Howe scored, counting his WHA days, 975 goals.
Yep. The boy born March 31st, 1928 in Floral, Saskatchewan, to a farmer and laborer.
Yep.
Stole our hearts on the ice. And also will be known for the Gordie Howe hat trick, when you score a goal, an assist, and a fight in one night. I don't think we'll ever see that again.
No way.
But he really was one of the meanest, toughest individuals, like his son Mark said, to ever lace up a pair of skates.
Yeah.
But he really was, at heart, he was a great man who I think we will miss too.
Yeah, he's really going to be missed. And as it turns out, there were some shocking deaths that took place in the NBA as well. For example, Sean Rooks, a guy who I used to see play at the University of Arizona and had a rather modest 12-year career in the NBA. He recently was an assistant coach in Philly, even interviewed for the Knicks job as an assistant, died of natural causes just hours after his interview. And also Hollis Thompson, he passed away at age 46. He had a long career in the league. He played for the Nuggets, the Orlando Magic, and I think the Phoenix Suns as well. Brooks Thompson, I should say. Brooks Thompson wound up playing in the NBA, and he passed away at age 46.
Well, our prayers and our thoughts will be with their families, but we got to move on to a much happier topic.
That's the cold realities of this. Speaking of cold, they were celebrating on the ice in Northern California last night because the Penguins wound up winning their 4th Stanley Cup in franchise history.
Let's get you through the games that led to it. Like last week, where you left off to Game 4. That's where the Penguins won 3-1. Evgeny Malkin gets the first goal of the series of that game, of the entire series for himself, and Eric Fair seals it with a late goal after San Jose had a strong push in the third period. But they won 3-1 in that game. It was huge for them, especially when Murray made a big stop on a breakaway from Patrick Marleau that saved that one-timer by Joe Pavelski early in the third. So they won 3-1, and they were setting themselves up for the first ever Pittsburgh championship victory in over 50 years. They haven't won in Pittsburgh in that long period of time.
Yeah.
Since the Pirates won the World Series. Now we go to Game 5 in Pittsburgh. They're up 3-1 with a chance to close out the series at home. Well, that just wasn't the case. As you saw in the first few seconds of the game, Logan Couture gets the first goal just within a few seconds. 2 assists, Brent Burns, Carlson, even Joe Pavelski scores. And they even though they were outshot 46-22, it doesn't matter. In the end, those 4 goals from the Sharks propelled them to a big 4-2 victory, leading to last night's Game 6. This is where Pittsburgh had to win.
Yeah.
Is had they lost last night
Then they would have had to go to Game 7 back at home.
on Wednesday, it would have been scheduled for Wednesday.
Yep.
Had the series continued. Well, here we go. The first goal of the game, of course, is scored by Brian Dumoulin. He gets the opening goal just within a few on the power play, and Patrick Hornquist gets an empty netter on a huge block by Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
But the game winner was in the second period after San Jose after Logan Couture tied it up in the second period. It was Sidney Crosby behind the net, passing to Chris Letang, gets it from the sharp right angle to the top right corner of the net, past Martin Jones. That was the game winner right there, and they ended up winning 3-1. Fourth franchise title for the city of Pittsburgh.
And Sidney Crosby, naturally, is the Conn Smythe Trophy winner as the playoffs' most valuable player. I mean, you can look at all of the numbers that he rolled up as far as scoring is concerned, but it goes beyond that. It's the number of face-offs that he won during the series, the great defense that he played during the series. This is why Sidney Crosby is still one of the best players in his sport.
And not only that, he made some pivotal assists. He didn't score as many lofty goals as you would have liked, but he contributed in other ways. If you look at Game 1, that backhanded pass to Connor Sheary, another guy that was brought up from the AHL affiliate of Pittsburgh during the season, Connor Sheary was a huge integral part for the Penguins during the playoffs, for sure. And then the assist last night to Letang to get the game winner, that was big right there. And Sidney Crosby even scored in Game 3 too. Like, he really, was, he is probably amazing. Sid the Kid, but granted, he's no kid anymore.
Yeah, he's 29 now.
Halifax.
But he's still a spectacular player. And it wasn't just Sidney Crosby either. What about the goaltending of Matt Murray? He was just standing on his head the entire playoff run.
I think what was great about Matt Murray was, if you go back to this opening series against the Rangers, okay, they lose Game 2 with Jeff Zatkoff at goaltender. This was a guy who took over for Marc-Andre Fleury after that concussion he suffered March 31st. After, Jeff Zatkoff screwed up in Game 2 and costing the Penguins a victory against the Rangers, and that was when the series was tied up. That's when Mike Sullivan made the decision to put Murray in, and it was a very good decision. As you can tell, it led to them winning the series. He really made some great saves in the postseason, as we mentioned earlier in Game 4.
And some of the other usual suspects that were integral in the Penguins winning the title this year. Chris Letang had a terrific series. Carl Hagelin, the ex-Ranger who wound up beating the Penguins in last year's series with the Rangers, gets traded to San Jose last summer, does not work out for him at all playing in Northern California. And as it turns out, he winds up getting traded to Anaheim last summer. Then did not play particularly well there, gets traded to Pittsburgh for the stretch run, and scores a big goal in one of the games in this postseason. Wound up having quietly a very, very solid postseason.
And how about Patrick Hornquist, Phil Kessel, the depth that this team has on offense and defense. This was a team that was great on the penalty kill, scored the most shorthanded goals during the regular season. I think what was really integral to their season was in December, you talk about 6 months ago, this was a team that was at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, 12th in the Eastern Conference, and they had to make a decision. And Lemieux and the organization decided to fire Mike Johnson, and they put Mike Sullivan in from their AHL affiliate, and he brings along Matt Murray and Zatkoff and Connor Sheary and several other AHL affiliate players to the big show, and it paid off big time.
The chemistry just was working perfectly for that team.
They beat the Rangers in 5 games. They take out the President's Trophy winning Capitals in 5 games. Really showing you that the President's Trophy means next to nothing. As in the last time a President's Trophy made it to the Stanley Cup, the 2011 Canucks, and they lost in 7 games to the Bruins.
What about the last time a President's Trophy winner actually won the entire thing?
I can't even recall, honestly.
Well, the one team that I could remember probably, I know the Rangers did that 22 years ago, but as far as recently, it would be either the Penguins or maybe the Detroit Red Wings.
I think it was the Red Wings, and you know what's crazy about the Penguins' victories? All their wins in all 4 of their Stanley Cup championships had been on the road. 91, they beat the North Stars of Minnesota. 92, they beat the Chicago Blackhawks. 2009, when they won in Detroit in 7 games. And in fact, yesterday's victory was to the very date they beat the Red Wings. And it's
As it turns out, the last team to win both the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup turned out to be the Red Wings 8 years ago, and they wound up going through the Penguins.
After, what's great about this victory for Pittsburgh, after, they win in 2009, you would think this was going to be the first of many victories for them, but that wasn't the case. You look at the concussions that Crosby unfortunately suffered in a season and a half, the early postseason exits they had, especially in the last 2 years, previous years against the Rangers in the opening series. This time, however, everything worked out. And by the way, they came back from a 3-2 deficit against the Lightning in the conference finals on top of that.
In fact, here is a list of every team that has won the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup in the same year. The Oilers, the Flames, the Rangers, the Dallas Stars, the Avalanche, and the Red Wings twice. And let me correct myself. The last team to actually win the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup the same year turned out to be the Chicago Blackhawks just 3 years ago.
In 2013, that was when they went on that run of winning 3 titles in that 6-year period, including last year, of course. It's just, to me, this Penguins team really is a culmination of just great depth, good decision making by the front office to make a coaching change, and amazing surprise from Matt Murray. And now it plays into the question going into the offseason and into the 2016-17 season for the Penguins, defending their championship. And when they will raise the banner, probably, what are they going to do about the goaltending situation? Are they going to have the most expensive backup goaltender in Marc-Andre Fleury making $5.5 million as a backup, or will he start over Matt Murray?
That's a really good question, because not only is Fleury making a lot of money, he's also coming off a really serious concussion situation. And who knows when he's going to be back at 100%.
Well, he did play during one game during the series in the conference finals. It was actually Game 5 when they replaced Murray for that one stint for Fleury, and he really messed up, and that's why they went back to Murray in Game 6. But it's really going to play into that question. And, the turnaround, that's the thing. Will this team stay together, or is there going to be major turnaround?
That's a really good question. We're going to have to wait and see exactly what happens.
As for the San Jose Sharks, though, it's very commendable, the job they did this year. It took them 25 years in the making to finally get to the promised land. Well, to get to where every team wants to get to, the Stanley Cup Finals. They just were 2 victories short of accomplishing that goal.
Yeah.
And you have to give it up to Martin Jones. Guy was a backup goaltender with the Kings back in 2014.
Yep.
He was on that team when they came back from that 3-game deficit to beat the Sharks. And that was the bane of the Sharks' existence, the early postseason exits, the failures they've had in the years, the turnaround, and then getting Peter DeBoer to be their coach this year. Seeing Joe Pavelski and Logan Couture and all these guys really make impact plays, and even Joel Ward. One of the few African-Americans that even plays hockey.
Yeah.
You know that? Seth Jones plays. Kyle Okposo.
Yep.
Not many. Even, Wayne Simmons.
Yeah.
I can't say PK Subban because he's Canadian.
Yeah, he's from Toronto originally.
But still, one of the few black people that play, not many black people that play hockey. I would love to see more black people play hockey.
It would be really great, because that would really bring the sport up into the mainstream right now. But you have to consider a couple of things. One, the sport is extremely expensive to try and play, because you have to consider all of the equipment that's being considered. And
I think the other sports are pretty expensive too.
Baseball, football, and hockey are 3 of the most expensive sports to play so far. With basketball, there's just a matter of getting a jersey, a pair of shorts, and some sneakers. And, of course, trying to register someone for a particular team. Not only that, but because of the lack of black athletes that are playing hockey, it's just not going to register with the African-American community that much,
You'll
if
be
at all.
I think in the next few years we're going to see a rise in African Americans and Black
I certainly
people.
hope so.
But getting back to the San Jose Sharks, a commendable season that they had. I can't wait to see what happens next year. This season was crazy because of the fact no Canadian team made the playoffs for the first time since 1970.
Yeah.
The fact that an American won the Art Ross Trophy for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw, yet again, the President's Trophy means nothing.
Yep.
Now, let's go to the NBA Finals, starting with Game 3 this past week, in which the Cavaliers, who were beaten by combined 48 points in Oakland this time, comes back with a big 120-90 victory on a big 32-point, 11-rebound performance by King James and Kyrie Irving's 30-point performance, and keeping the MVP to 19 points, 2 in the first half alone on a 6 of 13 shooting night. Talking about none other than Steph Curry, the unanimous MVP.
Yep, and lost in this whole thing was the fact that Kevin Love wound up suffering a concussion
In Game 2.
in one of the games in Oakland and wound up being benched for that. And as it turns out, he wound up coming back for Game 4. But guess what happened in Game 4?
The Splash Brothers came to town, especially finally Curry had the performance that we were all waiting for. Yes, he had some good points in the first 3 games, but really Game 4 was his coming out party. 38-point performance, 7 3-pointers, along with Klay Thompson's 25 points. The guys combined for 63 points on the evening, add the 108 that they scored on the evening, and they kept Cleveland under 100 points.
Yep.
When you keep Cleveland under 100 points, that's a recipe for victory. They have never won a game with less than 100 points in this entire postseason.
Yep. And the 5th game is tonight in Oakland. This is where the Warriors have a chance to win that 5th title in franchise history at home this time, whereas last year they wound up winning it on the road.
They could become the 7th team in NBA history to win consecutive championships.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, the team that they're playing, Cleveland, is trying to end a drought that is the longest in any city's history. 52 years they've gone without a championship since the '64 Browns won 27-0 in the NFL title game.
I can only feel for the proud fans of Cleveland right now because they have gone through so much as it is, not just with their teams just struggling mightily to get some semblance of respectability, much less trying to win a championship. But for all of the civil unrest that's going on in the city, they need something to help make them feel good about themselves. And once again, the Warriors are standing in the Cavaliers' way. And for all of the criticism that LeBron James has been getting, why don't we consider the supporting cast that he has? After Kyrie Irving, a good point guard, and Kevin Love, a really terrific power forward who, quite frankly, couldn't really spell defense, much less play it, who else can he go to? There's only so much that LeBron can do.
Well, you got Tristan Thompson who needs to really step up tonight. And finally, J.R. Smith in Game 3 had probably his best performance, but he reverted to his really crappy performance in Game 4 yet again. He has to come out wherever you are, Iman Shumpert.
And to think the Knicks wound up getting criticized all because they traded Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith for basically a set of basketballs. And look where it's gotten the Cavaliers, and also look where it's gotten the Knicks, too. Not only did they rid themselves of 2 problem children, the Cavaliers wound up inheriting some of that dead weight, who even though they've played well in spurts, when it comes to the real big time, specifically the NBA Finals, have completely disappeared.
I think what really killed the Cavaliers was the fact they had a chance to even the series, and they went almost 7 minutes in the fourth quarter without even scoring a single point. That was great defensive work on Golden State's part, and that was terrible offense on Cleveland's part, for one. 2, this entire postseason, it isn't just the Splash Brothers, of Thompson and Curry. It's really the entire bench that the Warriors have. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why they have 73 wins. Yes, you got Curry, the unanimous first-time unanimous MVP, and you have Klay Thompson. But that entire bench, when you think about it, Anderson Varejao, Andrew Bogut, you have
Harrison Barnes also,
Draymond
Green, Andre Iguodala. This is the culmination of maybe what? 4 or 5 years of building this team together to get to this point?
Oh, yes.
I mean, look at the draft. Look at the drafts that they've had in the past. Curry, Green, Thompson, James Michael McAdoo, Harrison Barnes, Festus Ezeli, who played a really important role for them in last year's championship run, and the smart trades that they made to just fill those holes that were really, really obvious.
And getting Anderson Varejao during the season, that was huge right there. Because he played for Cleveland. Then he went to Portland. And then he was let go by Portland. And Golden State had the smarts to pick him up. So he's the first person ever to play for both teams that are in this year's finals. Isn't that something, to say the least? And you know what? Steve Kerr is just an outstanding coach. Point blank.
Consider this. Steve Kerr won 3 NBA titles with the Bulls.
He was on that 72-win Bulls team. That's
right.
His team just broke the record.
It seems like he has a knack for being a part of history. First with the Bulls and now coaching the Warriors, even though he missed more than half the season because of back surgery. Right. Not only that, but he's won 3 rings as a player with the Bulls. I think 1 more as a player with the Spurs, and now he's on the verge of winning his 2nd ring as a head coach of the Warriors. This is a guy that not only has he seen it all, but he has experienced it all.
I think tonight's game 5, obviously, and the fact is the Warriors are up 3-1. Here are the keys and tools for both teams to win. If the Warriors want to win tonight, basically keep doing what you did in the first 2 games in Oakland. Drain the 3-pointers like they're going out of style. The bench having an all-out blitzkrieg fest on the Cavaliers. And on top of that, just keep force LeBron James to be take him out of the post game.
And even in the event that James can still muster enough offense, make the other guys beat them. Because right now, I just don't see any other player, not even Kyrie Irving or Kevin Love, for that matter, stepping up to try and make a big play in a big spot.
Oh, and force turnovers, like the 7 turnovers they forced on LeBron James in Game 4. That was very integral to Oakland winning. That's if the Warriors want to end it all tonight and win their 2nd straight championship. If Cleveland wants to force Game 6 back in Cleveland, here's what they got to do. You got to take Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and the entire Warriors bench out of the equation. You got to get a hell of a shooting performance from Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, and Iman Shumpert. Those guys have to come out to play tonight in order for Cleveland to win.
And while they're at it, win the battle of the boards, too. Because if you noticed in Game 4, who was the one guy that was getting offensive rebounds in different sequences? It was Anderson Varejao, a guy who, what he sorely lacks in offense, he makes up for by doing the dirty work under the boards and on the perimeter defending guys.
Oh, and by the way, Cleveland, make sure you do very well defensively at the 3-point line. And take away Steph Curry's ability to have those step-back 3-pointers. If you do all those things, you will force a Game 6 back in Cleveland. If not, it'll be to your own detriment. You'll lose. You'll continue Cleveland's losing streak of championships for many years to come. Because I can tell you this, the Browns are not going to end it. The Indians,
it sure as hell won't be the Indians, although right now they're doing reasonably well for themselves, leading the AL Central.
They were, honestly, the last team to even be in a major title game was the Cleveland. Cleveland Cavaliers. Before the Cleveland Cavaliers, it was the Cleveland Indians back in the '97 World Series when they lost to the Florida Marlins.
Yeah, the famous Tony Fernandez series where he butchered a play in Game 7 and it wound up costing them the title.
It's just, and you think about their history ever since '64. The cardiac kids of the '80s couldn't do it. They've had some miserable postseason. They couldn't even make it. They haven't made it to a Super Bowl yet. And then you look at the Indians, as you mentioned, '97, and now the Cavs too. The bleeding has to end at some point for Cleveland. I hope that a Game 6 gets forced. I want to see this go the distance, in fact.
I would too, but right now, the Warriors are just way too powerful. They're loaded in the starting lineup. They're loaded on coming off the bench. They're loaded on the sidelines in their coaching staff so much that once the season ends or once the series ends, Luke Walton is going to take the Laker job.
Yeah. And even without Draymond Green, they're still good.
Yeah, that's another thing. Draymond Green is suspended for tonight's game for his actions in Game 4 with LeBron James.
LeBron should have also been given a suspension, but the NBA will not let their golden goose get suspended.
Pretty interesting considering that Tyronn Lue was whining and crying that LeBron was not getting any calls in this series.
I know, really.
And they wound up getting him fined for it.
At some point, I don't know if Tyronn Lue's even going to be there next year. It wouldn't shock me to see him be let go by the Cavaliers organization and they go searching for a new coach.
Well, they're going to, somewhere down the line, they're going to have to get some kind of stability on that sideline, and they're going to have to get someone who can really put LeBron in his place, because right now it seems like he's become the de facto head coach for them.
All right, I'm going to give you some quick news. 148th running of the Belmont Stakes took place this past Saturday at Elmont, New York at Belmont Stakes Park. Creator won by a nose over Destin. 3 different horses have won this year's Triple Crown. Nyquist at the Kentucky Derby, Exaggerator at the Preakness, and Creator by just a nose. And Exaggerator, the 7-5 favorite, came in 11th place. The horse did not listen to Ken DeSormo at all. And in terms of the St. Jude Classic, which of course is a great organization to help children who are suffering through the worst forms of cancer, the PGA Tour does a great tournament with the FedEx St. Jude Classic. And Daniel Berger, the rookie from last year, wins his first PGA title in over 50 starts by 3 strokes over lefty Phil Mickelson, Brooks Koepka, and Steve Stricker, including that 32-foot putt on the par 3 14th. And coming up this Thursday, the biggest tournament, the U.S. Open.
Yep, it all starts this coming Thursday. I'm a little curious to see what the field is for that tournament.
You got Hideki Matsuyama, the best when it comes to birdies on the par 5, 22.77, who has never won a major, came tied for 10th at the 2013 championship. Phil Mickelson, this is the man everybody will be looking at. Mm-hmm. A record 6 times he's either placed second or tied for second. The last being 2013 at Marion when he lost to Justin Rose by a few strokes. Will he finally get that career major and end his futility? He made the cut. He missed the cut at the Masters when he had an over 79. I think this time he might do it. Adam Scott, of course, the Aussie, tied for 4th, 8th ranked in the world. Ricky Fowler, who's been in the top 5 in every major in the last 2 years, except at this past year's Masters. Could he finally do it? Mm-hmm. Justin Rose, who won in 2013, would try to win his second title in 3 years. Dustin Johnson, who had that miserable 18th hole meltdown against Jordan Spieth and came in second place. Jordan Spieth, of course, as I mentioned, defending his 2015 championship, lost miserably at this year's Masters Championship when he had a huge 5-stroke lead that he let go, especially in the back 9. Will he be able? He's number 1 scoring average, birdie average, and putts per round. And then you got Rory McIlroy, a part of that big 3. The Northern Irishman, the Ulsterman, won the 2011 championship. Will he win his second title? He's made 7 straight cuts, and he's been in the top 4 the last 4 tournaments. He's awesome. And then Jason Day, Aussie.
Yep.
Oi.
Mm-hmm.
Second, or tied for second, the 2011 and the 2013 U.S. Open as well. Number 1 in the entire world, has won 3 tournaments, including the World Golf Championship Match They'll Play, the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and most recently in May, the Players Championship. Could this be his 4th title?
We'll see.
If I had to pick, honestly, I'm going to go with Hideki Matsuyama.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the big Japanese star. I'm going to go with him to win it by 2 strokes.
Yep.
As for, of course, NASCAR, the Firekeepers Casino 400, Joey Logano wins his first NASCAR championship of the season on a huge breakaway from Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson. The top 3 finishers, the youngest ever at the average age of 23. So congratulations to them from Michigan International Speedway. And finally, we have UEFA action. The European.
Not just UEFA action, but soccer action in general. I think it's the European Championships, and also Copa America.
Centenario. Love it. And the United States actually pulled off with 2 big victories this past week.
And who were the opponents?
Well, trying to get that. I know I got a lot of these papers, but let me tell you this. The U.S. basically won their field. They lost to Colombia, but they were able to beat their other 2 opponents in their field, and now we'll be playing Ecuador in the quarterfinals this coming Thursday.
What shocked me was the fact that Brazil, always a world power, wound up getting eliminated in the first round. This just goes to show you how far Brazil has fallen off the map.
Even after the first game when Felipe Coutinho had 3 goals for Brazil, especially when they knocked Haiti like they were going out of style 7-1, it didn't really matter. At the end of the day, they lost by 1 goal to Peru, and Peru was able to take their slot in the knockout phase. And now today, of course, we got Mexico and Venezuela playing each other. This is a big time game, and you got Uruguay. Well, Mexico already clinched, but you got Uruguay, Jamaica right there. Both teams that were knocked out. But this is for who will be number 1 and 2. And tomorrow you got Chile and Panama, Argentina and Bolivia. Of course, this past week Lionel Messi had a hat trick in Copa America. As for UEFA action, which is the European League, the winner actually will get a spot in the Confederations Cup for next year. There's nothing at stake for the Copa, though, because Chile already has that spot from the Copa district. But CONCACAF is a different story for Mexico. Now, France beat Romania in the very first match. Oliver Giroud, a great player, got the first goal of the entire tournament. Switzerland beat Albania 1-0. Fabian Schär, a really outstanding striker. Wales, for the first time ever in over 50 years, actually scored a goal in an international tournament.
Wow.
They won 2-1.
Amazing.
And the English and the Russians, they tied 1-0. I'm very shocked that even happened.
They tied 1-1? 1-1.
Yeah, 1-1. And then in Group C action, Poland beats Northern Ireland 1-0. Germany beat Ukraine, including a huge goal at the end of the game by one of my favorite players, Bastian Schweinsteiger, in extra time. And Croatia, Luka Modric, of course, gets the game-winning goal for Croatia over Turkey.
Yep. And
today, you had Italy and Belgium, the Republic of Ireland, Sweden, Spain, Czech Republic, and some more action coming up this week in UEFA. So stay tuned.
And I think it's this coming weekend that Money in the Bank is taking place, correct?
That's right. The next pay-per-view for WWE, Money in the Bank. This is a huge main event that's being scheduled for the World Heavyweight Championship. Roman Reigns defending against Seth Rollins, who won the Money in the Bank tournament last year.
You had to think that this was going to be taking place soon, because after Seth Rollins missed all that time with that knee injury, you knew he was going to want to settle a score, I should say,
that was
with Roman Reigns.
If you saw at the end of the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, he came in the ring and gave Roman Reigns, the pedigree, signifying, I'm here for your title.
Yep. Speaking of titles, it's going to be Rusev and Titus O'Neil for the United States Championship, and
I'm happy for Titus
O'Neil. Yep, and a fatal 4-way match for the tag team titles.
You got the New Day defending their title. I know, your least favorite group, against Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, the Vaudevillains, that's Simon Gotch and Aiden English, and Enzo Amore and Big Cass. You know who Enzo Amore is? He's a certified G and a bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. And this guy over here is Big Cass. He's 7 foot tall, and you can't teach that.
Yep. And then there's John Cena and AJ Styles in a very interesting matchup.
This is a matchup that has WrestleMania written all over it, but it's happening at Money in the Bank after the absence that John Cena had with the yet another injury, 2 in a 1-year stint.
Yep. And then there's the Money in the Bank ladder match, the main event. The winner of this match gets that big briefcase, which has a guaranteed contract for a title shot that can be cashed in anywhere, any place, anytime. Sami Zayn, Cesaro, Chris Jericho, Dean Ambrose, Kevin Owens, Alberto Del Rio are all going to be squaring off against each other to try and climb that ladder and get that briefcase.
If you had to choose which of those 6 will emerge as the victor, who would it be and why?
My heart says Dean Ambrose because somewhere down the line, I think he should be. I think he should be given the proper respect and be awarded an opportunity at a major title. I mean, I think he's won. Is it the U.S. title or the Intercontinental title in the past? Now it's time for him to be a WWE champion. Who's going to win this one? I'm going to go with a dog horse and say Alberto Del Rio.
He's won the championship several. He is a former world heavyweight champion. He's the only person to win the world number that had 40 people back in 2014. But I'll be honest, I'm going with the Swiss Superman Cesaro. That's my pick.
That would be a good pick right there. Cesaro, hasn't he been tag team champion in the past?
Oh yeah, with Tyson Kidd back, who of course is married to Natalya Neidhart. They were tag team partners up until Tyson's second injury in 2 years, unfortunately, and he still hasn't even come back from his latest injury. So Cesaro had to go on this individual run of his, and he really is a great staple amongst the fans. They love him, especially that move he does when he knocks you on the ground and he swings you.
Yeah, a little version of an airplane spin.
It's unbelievable, and the fans just get into it and they count it. But I'm really happy for Titus O'Neil of all people. After the disrespect he was shown earlier this year by Vince McMahon and being suspended for 2 months, and I thought he was going to leave the company, and I think he was justified if he did.
Yeah.
But the fact that he stayed around through his suspension and was a good man about it, and realized, what, Vince is who he is. I'm just gonna be me. I'm gonna just keep fighting on and keep plugging away. And look what it got him: a title shot against Rusev. Mm-hmm. And I love this. It's the almost same storyline. America's next great hope against the guy who proclaims to love America but resents it in Rusev.
Yeah.
With Lana, of course, as the mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm.
She's gorgeous, though. I love looking at her inside. Mm-hmm. Who'd you pick, though, to win?
Rusev. Way too much power there.
I know. That's the thing. He just won the title. There's no way they're going to take it away from him after just one victory. Fatal 4-Way, I think this is the end of the New Day. I really believe this is...
It should have been the end months ago.
I think the team that's going to end up winning it is the Vaudevillains. I think they're going to be the new tag team champions. And I'm going for AJ Styles to win this match against John Cena. Mm-hmm. And for the Money in the Bank, I said, it's going to be Cesaro, but the World Heavyweight title match, who would you pick?
This is a really good question. Reigns, of course, is the more powerful of the two, but Seth Rollins, not only is he the more, I'd say, not only is he the more technically sound wrestler, if you can call it that, but he just comes up with so many tricks that are up his sleeve that he's capable of anything. But I would have to go with Roman Reigns in this one.
Yeah, it's still way too early for that to happen. I think they're going to wait for the right time where Roman Reigns will be dethroned, but it's not going to be at Money in the Bank. Roman Reigns will keep his championship. In fact, what they're doing later this year is they're bringing back the brand split. Mm-hmm. They're going to have a draft for Raw and SmackDown like they did years ago.
Yep.
And what they're doing is some months later or next month, they're going to have the big draft, and they're going to move SmackDown from Thursday to Tuesday, and it's going to be a live 3-hour show like Raw.
I see.
And in fact, this past weekend they had the big NXT takeover event, The End,
right,
in which the Demon did lose, Finn Balor. I think we're going to be seeing Finn Balor in the next few months coming to the main roster.
Quite possibly.
I think we might also see the debut of Bayley in the women's division too, which I cannot wait. I love her. She's a hugger.
Yep.
And I think we might even see Samoa Joe at some point in WWE.
How much longer does this guy need to really prove himself in the big time? I mean, this was a guy who was a champion at TNA many years ago. I
know. And it's crazy, but yet he still has the fire to keep doing it. And, there's but the guy I can't wait to see in WWE someday, my favorite NXT wrestler right now, Shinsuke Nakamura, who came from New Japan Pro, was the biggest star in Japan. They call him the king of strong style. He went up against another great acquisition, Austin Aries, who's been around in the business for over 10 years too. These are guys that are coming down the pipeline to the main roster at some point.
Right.
You know, really, that's what I love about NXT is that they develop a lot of these future wrestlers. I just want to see when Bray Wyatt will actually come back to television. I haven't seen him in a long time. And Luke Harper actually suffered an ACL injury that he's still trying to recover from. It's been a crazy turnaround in WWE. And I think at some point, Brooke, the woman they brought up from the women's division, she's going to be an enemy of Charlotte.
We'll see.
I can't wait to see that happen. Now to baseball.
Yep. Just over the weekend, the Yankees wound up hosting the Tigers. The biggest part of the weekend was the fact that Old Timers Day took place yesterday. A lot of the guys from back in the day have made their return, although it was a little empty without having Yogi Berra there anymore.
I know, and it was, but you know what? To see Whitey Ford there, to see Bernie Williams, see all the greats, including Willie Randolph, the former Mets manager and Yankee great player, to see all of them together. Of course, there's no other team that does a tradition like that.
Yep. But the best part about the Old Timers Day festivities yesterday, seeing Hideki Matsui hit a second deck home run off of David Cone. That was not necessarily surprising, but it just goes to show you Matsui's still got it. Godzilla is still providing some thrillers.
Oh, without a doubt. And seeing Paul Neal too, play in the outfield as well. It was like it was like old times. I really thought that Derek Jeter was going to be there, but I bet you somewhere down the line, Derek will make an appearance, and that Old Timers Day, forget it, is going to be insane.
I think it's going to take another 3 years before he can be eligible for the Old Timers Day festivities, but that is definitely going to be drawing a lot of people. It drew a lot of people yesterday, and it was really great to see a lot of these old timers there. Although I did have a bone to pick with a couple of these guys. For example, Lee Mazzilli, he was a Met for 6 years. He only played 38 games with the Yankees. I think it was his 7th year in the league, yet he got invited.
Oh, he was part of and the fact that he was part of the 86 Mets World Series team.
And Homer Bush, too, was only there a year and a half, yet he wound up being invited as an old-timer.
You know what's crazy? Al Leiter is working for the Yankees in their broadcast booth, and he was only there for a few years when he was a big-time fixture with the Mets organization, including being on that rotation in 2000 against the Yankees. So sometimes it baffles you, but at the same time, that's a great connection that the Mets and the Yankees have, is that we had a lot of the same players, if you think about it. But you know what? Overall, this week has not been great for the Yankees in terms of the first base. They've had 4 people at first base unfortunately get injured, including most recently Mark Teixeira. Now they're going to Rob Refsnyder to be the everyday first baseman.
And I just heard that the Yankees signed Ike Davis.
This guy was a first baseman with the Mets.
And the A's and the Pirates.
If he can maybe have some of the power he had several years ago with the Mets come back with the Yankees, who knows? Sky's the limit, possibly.
Yep.
As for the Mets this past week, as for the rest of the week, at least they had a 5-game winning streak, the Yankees.
Yeah, and wound up getting snapped by the Tigers over the weekend. Now, as for the Mets, a little scary situation involving Terry Collins, because he wound up falling ill before yesterday's game, and he had to be rushed to a hospital. Fortunately, he's doing better, and he is going to be back to manage the team tomorrow.
And at least he'll be back in time for the Pittsburgh series. It should be a crazy week for both teams. By the way, the MLB draft took place, and Mickey Moniak was the first overall pick by the Phillies, an outfielder. The Mets, what they did, they got this guy Justin Dunn from Boston College, and the Yankees got Blake Rutherford, the outfielder from Chaminade College Prep in California, in the first round.
It's obvious that the Yankees are trying to go younger with their farm system, while the Mets are looking to win immediately.
As for the Staten Island Yankees, our single-A affiliate, the season gets officially started underway Friday in MCU Park in Brooklyn, and this coming Saturday, first home game of the year. By the way, there are tickets still available. You can talk to my mother, Eileen Rosen, through her organization's Development Events Series, and part of the proceeds from the 50-50 that night will go to the Skylight Foundation.
There you go.
And
That's officially going to do it for us, folks. First off, thanks again to Eileen Hanlon on the other side of the glass, or as I like to call her, Farrah, because she wears her hair like Farrah Fawcett, God rest her soul. Thanks to everyone at home for watching. For everyone here, Eric, thank you.
thank you, Jamie.
I'm Jamie.
And I'm Eric.
Good night, everyone.
Peace.